Hello everyone. From our previous video, we talked about everything about lyric poetry. If you haven't watched that video, you can see the link in the description box below. This time, we will tackle everything about narrative poetry. Let's start our discussion. Narrative poetry presents a series of events through actions and dialogues. This means that, like short stories, a narrative poetry has characters, settings, and plot, which presents dialogues and actions. That also made it known for its lengthy stanzas. The only difference they have is that short story is written in sentences and paragraphs, while narrative poetry is written in lines and stanzas. Most narrative poems feature a single speaker, which is the narrator. A narrator determines the point of view of the story. It is either in first person or third person. A narrator is also responsible for identifying the settings and telling the plot. Now, let's discuss the different kinds of narrative poetry. First, we have the ballad. A ballad is a form of narrative verse that is considered either poetic or musical. As a literary device, a ballad is a narrative poem typically consisting of a series of four-line stanzas. Let's take a look at the sample excerpt of the ballad titled The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This poem is considered as a poetic ballad because if we're going to look at its structure, each stanza contains four lines. A ballad can also be in the form of song, which is called a musical ballad. A singer known for singing a ballad is called a balladeer. The common subject matter of ballad are tragic romance, reimagination of legends, religion, life, or death, recounting historical events, honor of warriors, happiness, despair, love, and supernatural stories. Another kind of narrative poetry is an epic. An epic is long, often book-length narrative in verse form that retells the heroic journey of a single person or a group of persons. During the pre-colonial era in the Philippines, oral literature was rampant. That means they do not write their stories, but rather pass it down from one generation to another orally. They required the binuot, the Visayan term for their tribal princess, to memorize each line of the epic so that the story of their hero lives on. The main character of most epics is their tribal leader. The story includes the great feats of their hero. The only alteration they make is the inclusion of supernatural powers, since they believe in animism, where a worthy warrior is gifted by the spirits of the natural world. That is why an epic can be distinguished easily because of certain elements like superhuman deeds, fabulous adventures, and highly stylized language. Also, as part of their commemoration to their hero, they tend to accompany the narration of epics with musical instruments. Some examples of an epic are the Babylonians' Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sanskrit's Mahabharata, the longest epic in the world, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and Virgil's Aeneid, which is Roman epic inspired by Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. In the Philippines, we have the Ilocanos' Biyag ni Lamang, the Ifugao's Hudhud ni Aliguyon, and the Sulud people of Central Panay's Labao Donggon. Now let's move to the third kind of narrative poetry, which is the metrical romance. A metrical romance is a type of prose poem that was especially popular during the Renaissance. These poems do not rhyme and deal with such themes such as love, rites of passage, chivalry, adventure, and interpersonal relationships. Knights, fair maidens, and epic journeys appear frequently in metrical romance poems. This form of poetry is also dominant to the family of royalty, nobility, and wealthy landowners. This can be assumed that such poetic form is considerably used for those who have a high status. Most metrical romance poems usually have a happy ending. One example of metrical romance is Spenser's fairy queen. Although the name has romance in it, it does not always talk about love story. Romance can be in the form of an excellent feat of a knight possessing a high moral character. If the hero removed from the element of metrical romance, if the hero is removed from the element of metrical romance, then the poem will be called a metrical tale. A popular example of metrical tale is Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. Finally, the last kind of narrative poetry is an idyll. An idyll is a type of short poem that describes rural life or a natural scene. This means that the poem focuses on the day-to-day activity of farmers and laborers in rural areas. It describes the tasks done in the field, such as, but not limited to, caring for the livestock, fetching water from the well or nearby streams, and plowing the field. Idyll are written in the style of or inspired by Theocritus' Idylls. He was a great poet who died in 260 BC and is regarded as the creator of the pastoral poems. There is little known about the poet besides what can be ascertained or inferred from his writing. In the first idyll of Theocritus wrote, he describes Circe singing to a goatherd about Daphnis. Several other divine figures come into the poem to speak to Circe about his love. One example of idyll is John Wolfgang van Gogh's Hermann and Dorothea. Let me read this for you. Truly, I never have seen the market and street so deserted. How as if it were swept looks the town, or had perished, not 50. Are there methinks of all our inhabitants in it remaining? What will not curiosity do? Here is everyone wanting, hurrying to gaze on the sad possession of pitiful exiles. This is the end of our discussion in narrative poetry. I hope you were able to distinguish the difference between each kind of narrative poetry. So let's end it here. Goodbye and always have fun learning. Bye for now.